Hello students and welcome to the Virtual Learning Network. This is session 17 for Modern India 1857 to 1964 and here we will discuss constitutional reforms 1892 to 1920. The topics to be covered are background, the Indian Councils Act 1892, Morley-Minto reforms and Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Now first is background. Under the Charter Act of 1833, a fourth member known as the Law Member was added to the Executive Council of the Governor General. He was entitled to sit and vote in the Council of the Governor General only when it met for legislative purposes. Thus, for the first time, a separation was introduced between the executive and legislative functions of the central government. सो चार्टर एक्ट के अंदर जो 1833 में लॉन्च हुआ था, एक फोर्थ मेंबर था लॉ मेंबर जो कि एग्जीक्यूटिव काउंसिल में ऐड हुआ था और ये मेंबर की ड्यूटी थी कि वो काउंसिल में वोट कर सकता था, लेकिन तभी जब लेजिस्लेटिव पर्पसेस के लिए काउंसिल मीट करेगी या मीटिंग होगी उनकी. ये पहली बार था जब एक सेपरेशन इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ था एग्जीक्यूटिव और लेजिस्लेटिव फंक्शंस के बीच में सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट में. देन another change introduced by this act was that the presidency governments were deprived of their independent legislative powers. और एक और चेंज जो इसमें आया था वो था कि जो प्रेसिडेंसी गवर्नमेंट थी उनके पास कोई इंडिपेंडेंट लेजिस्लेटिव पावर्स नहीं थी. And 20 years later in 1853 another charter act was passed under which the law member was given full rank as a member of the council of the governor general. उसके बाद 20 साल बाद 1853 में एक और चार्टर एक्ट पास किया गया जिसके अंडर लॉ मेंबर के पास पूरी रैंक थी मेंबर ऑफ काउंसिल कहलाने की. एंड एट द सेम टाइम the distinction between the council of the governor general as an executive and as a legislative body became more marked because the size of this council for legislative purposes was increased by including 6 additional members. और इस टाइम पे जो डिस्टिंक्शन था काउंसिल ऑफ गवर्नर जनरल के बीच में, जो डिफरेंसेस थे एग्जीक्यूटिव और लेजिस्लेटिव बॉडीज के बीच में, वो और ज्यादा इंटेंस हो गए थे क्योंकि जो काउंसिल का साइज था लेजिस्लेटिव पर्पसेस के लिए वो भी इंक्रीज हो गया था. 6 एडिशनल मेंबर्स आ गए थे एंड दे वर ऑल सैलरीड ऑफिशियल्स. 4 represented the 3 presidencies and the government of the north western province and 2 were judges. The act styled such members as legislative councillors. And the proposal to add non-official members, either European or Indian, was not accepted. Then the Indian Councils Act 1892. From the point of view of the government, the Act of 1861 worked satisfactorily. अगर हम गवर्नमेंट के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखें तो 1861 का जो एक्ट था वो सेटिस्फैक्टरीली काम करा था, बट द पीरियड विच फॉलोड सॉ अ रिमार्केबल ग्रोथ ऑफ नेशनल कॉन्शियसनेस इन इंडिया. अ फीलिंग रैपिडली डेवलप्ड that the people inhabiting the country had common interest, aspirations and destiny. लेकिन गवर्नमेंट के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखें तो एक्ट सही था, लेकिन अगर इंडियन के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखें, पीपल ऑफ इंडियन सिटीजन्स ऑफ इंडिया के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से देखें तो वहां पे नेशनल कॉन्शियसनेस बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ गई थी. एंड by introducing changes in the constitutional structure, dissatisfaction of educated Indians could be obviated without adversely affecting government's all-embracing autocracy, and it was with this objective that a new Indian Councils Act was passed in 1892. Now the main provisions of the Act. The Indian Councils Act of 1892 was an amending act. Consequently, the basic constitutional provisions remained the same as under the Act of 1861. So Indian Councils Act जो था वो amending act था, लेकिन जो उसके मेन प्रोविजंस थे, बेसिक प्रोविजंस जो थे वो एक्ट ऑफ 1861 जैसे ही थे. मेनली 2 टाइप्स ऑफ चेंजेस वर इंट्रोड्यूस, चेंजेस इन द कॉम्पोजिशन ऑफ लेजिस्लेटिव बॉडीज एंड एनलार्जमेंट ऑफ फंक्शंस. नेक्स्ट इज द Morley-Minto reforms. Now, the promulgation of the Morley Minto reforms of 1909 is to be seen in the background of the phase of turmoil and militant activities that followed the Indian Council Act of 1892. Here we will discuss need for constitutional changes, changes in the composition of legislative bodies, and changes in functions. First is the need for constitutional changes. Now, outside the Congress, the 1.5 decade following 1892 saw growing impatience with the goal and methods of the Congress itself. अगर हम कांग्रेस के बाहर देखें तो 1892 में बहुत ज़्यादा impatience आ गई थी जो goals और methods से कांग्रेस को लेके उसके लिए. And during 1885 to 1906, the number of students passing the matriculation in India increased from 1286 to 8211. Though by today's standards the number appeared ridiculously small, this amounted to an absolute 7-fold increase in terms of numbers. अगर हम आज की बात करें तो ये जो increase था matriculation पास लोगों में वो बहुत छोटा था, लेकिन अगर हम उस वक्त की बात करें तो नंबर के हिसाब से ये 7-fold था, 7 times increase था. The number of newspapers and journals published and their total circulation also shows a similar trend. This does indicate that the number of those Indians who were likely to be conscious of their rights as citizens and of the duties of the government, and also of those who had begun to understand the disadvantages of being under alien rule, increased substantially. So, अगर हम ये देखें कि ये जो increase हुआ था लोगों की matriculation पास करने में, ये था क्योंकि लोग जानना चाहते थे कि उनके राइट्स क्या है, उनके गवर्नमेंट को लेके ड्यूटीज क्या है, कंट्री को लेके ड्यूटीज क्या है, और ये एलियन रूल की डिसएडवांटेजेस क्या क्या है, और इस वजह से वो अवेयरनेस फैलाने के लिए और जानने के लिए एजुकेशन ले रहे थे. एंड these years also saw the beginning of what has been described as extremist and revolutionary streams of the Indian national movement, to which, among other things, Curzon's policies substantially contributed. Then, next is the changes in the composition of legislative bodies. Now, this act increased the strength of the central as well as provincial councils. The number of additional members in the central council was increased to 60, while the number of additional members in provincial council was to be between 30 and 50. This number does not include the ex officio members. The additional members were to be of two kinds, official and non-official. So, अगर हम देखें इस एक्ट की वजह से सेंट्रल और प्रोविंशियल काउंसिल्स में स्ट्रेंथ आ गई थी, क्योंकि जो नंबर था एडिशनल मेंबर्स का सेंट्रल काउंसिल में वो इंक्रीज हो गया था 60 तक, और प्रोविंशियल काउंसिल्स के जो एडिशनल मेंबर्स थे वो 30 से 50 के बीच में लाई कर रहे थे, और इसके अंदर एक्स ऑफिशियो मेंबर्स इंक्लूडेड नहीं है. सो एडिशनल मेंबर्स जो थे वो दो तरीके के थे, official and non-official, and at the center the official members were to be in a majority. In the provincial legislatures, non-official majorities were conceded, and this was done because of the understanding that the non-official members would represent such diverse interests and classes that it would be difficult for them to take a joint stand. And moreover, if the eventuality of their passing an undesirable bill did come up, these bills could conveniently be vetoed. So, अगर हम देखें जो रिमेनिंग 27 सीट्स थी उनको अलग अलग तरीके से डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किया था, जैसे कि नॉन ऑफिशियल मेंबर्स जो थे प्रोविंशियल लेजिस्लेटिव काउंसिल्स के उनमें 13 थे. बाय लैंड होल्डर्स ऑफ 6 provinces they were 6. Then Muslim of 5 provinces had 5 seats. Alternately, by Muslim landholders of UP or of Bengal had 1 seat, and Chambers of Commerce of Calcutta and Bombay had 2 seats. Then changes in functions. The Act did not make any alteration in the legislative powers of these councils. It simply extended their functions. The members of the legislative councils were given the right to move resolutions on matters of general public interest subject to certain limitations. These resolutions were to be in the form of recommendations to the government, which later might or might not adopt. Elaborate rules were laid down for discussing the financial statement presented in the House by the finance members. Opportunity for discussing the statement and moving resolutions was given before the budget in its final form was presented. The right to ask questions was extended by giving the member who asked the original question a right to put supplementary questions also. Then Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. By 1916, all parties in India as well as Britain began to think that some changes in structure of government were necessary. The aspirations of the Indian had also increased during this period. As a response to the political pressure in India during the war years and to buy support of Indians, the Montagu-Chelmsford scheme was introduced by the British. सो 1916 में जितनी भी पार्टीज थी इंडिया में या ब्रिटेन में, उन्होंने सोचा कि कुछ चेंजेस लाने की जरूरत पड़ सकती है गवर्नमेंट में, और इंडियंस की भी एस्पिरेशंस इतनी ज़्यादा इंक्रीज हो गई थी तो इसकी वजह से पॉलिटिकल प्रेशर बढ़ गया था गवर्नमेंट पे, और इसलिए इंडियंस को सपोर्ट करने के लिए और उनका सपोर्ट जीतने के लिए मोंटागू-चेम्सफोर्ड स्कीम इंट्रोड्यूस किया ब्रिटिशर्स ने. नाउ द सर्कमस्टांसेस leading to Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Morley and Minto could hardly have imagined that the scheme of constitutional reforms which they had evolved after 3.5 years of painstaking consultations at different levels would cease to satisfy barely 7 years later. And by 1916, all parties in India as well as Britain began to think that some changes in the struggle और स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया वर नेसेसरी. सो मॉर्ली और मिंटो ने कभी ये नहीं सोचा था कि स्कीम जो वो लेके आ रहे हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रिफॉर्म्स की, जो उन्होंने 3.5 साल में ली है, वो कभी भी सेटिस्फाई नहीं कर पाएंगी या फिर 7 साल बाद वो सेटिस्फाई नहीं कर पाएंगी कंट्रीमैन को. सो 1916 में जितनी भी पार्टीज थी इंडिया में या ब्रिटेन में, उन्होंने सोचा कि इस स्ट्रक्चर में कुछ चेंज करने की जरूरत पड़ सकती है. एंड दिस वाज लार्जली द रिजल्ट ऑफ द कंडीशंस प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय द आउटब्रेक ऑफ वर्ल्ड वॉर इन अगस्त 1914. और ये सारी जो कंडीशंस थी ये आई थी वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद. The war did not pose any immediate threat to India, but being part of the British Empire, India became automatically involved. फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर का कोई इमीडिएट थ्रेट नहीं था इंडिया को, लेकिन क्योंकि वो ब्रिटिश एम्पायर के अंडर आती है तो इसलिए वो भी ऑटोमेटिकली इन्वॉल्व हो गई थी. एंड देयर आफ्टर इंडिया मेड ungrudging contribution to the war effort and supplied manpower, money and material. Because of the help given to on a crucial occasion, expectations of Indians increased. It was not that they wanted reward for having served the rulers. Actually, fighting shoulder to shoulder with European soldiers had given new self-confidence to the Indians. They wanted a recognition of their ability to rule themselves. This aspiration was reinforced by the ideas generated during the war. The American President Woodrow Wilson had said that the war was being fought to make the world safe for democracy. So, इंडियंस की एस्पिरेशंस इसलिए बढ़ गई थी क्योंकि उन्होंने ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट को अपना सपोर्ट दिया, मैन पावर के रूप में, मनी के रूप में और मटेरियल के रूप में. और इस वजह से क्योंकि वो यूरोपियन सोल्जर्स से शोल्डर टू शोल्डर लड़े थे, उनमें सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस आ गया था और उन्हें भी अब एक रिकॉग्निशन चाहिए था. और ये एस्पिरेशन जो थी, इसकी वजह से नए आइडियाज जनरेट हुए वॉर के टाइम पे. एंड अमेरिकन प्रेसिडेंट ने उस वक्त ये भी कहा था कि अब जो वर्ल्ड है वो डेमोक्रेसी के लिए सेफ है. एंड द होप इमर्ज दैट दिस वर्ल्ड एटलीस्ट मीन दैट इंडिया वुड बी पुट ऑन द रोड टू सेल्फ गवर्नमेंट. देन द चेंजेस इन सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट. Now, the chief executive authority remained vested in the Governor General, who remained responsible to the British Parliament through the Secretary of State and not to the Indian legislature. The constitution of government's Governor General Executive Council was slightly modified, while substantial changes were made in the composition of the Indian legislature. But it was made clear that the aim was not to increase its powers but merely to make it more representative and increase opportunities of influencing the government. To implement the policy of increasing association of Indians in every branch of administration, it was provided that of the 6 members of the Executive Council of the Governor General, 3 would be Indians. So, changes लाने के लिए ये डिसाइड किया गया जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन होगा उसके अंदर जो एग्जीक्यूटिव काउंसिल के 6 मेंबर्स होंगे उनमें से 3 जो होंगे वो इंडियंस होंगे. And it should however be noted that these members were given portfolios of lesser significance like law, education, labor, health or industry. They were accountable to the Governor General and through him to the Secretary of State and not to the legislature. लेकिन ये जो इंडियन मेंबर्स लेके आए थे वो एग्जीक्यूटिव काउंसिल में उनको लेसर सिग्निफिकेंस दिया जाता था. वो अकाउंटेबल थे गवर्नर जनरल के लिए और उसके बाद फिर सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट के लिए और ना कि लेजिस्लेचर के लिए. Then the changes in the provincial government. Under the Government of India Act of 1919, responsibility for certain functions of the government in the provinces was transferred while control over others was reserved in British hands. And under this division, the subjects were divided into 2 halves called reserved and transferred. So Government of India Act 1919 के अंदर जो responsibility थी कुछ functions की वो ट्रांसफर हो गई थी लेकिन जो कंट्रोल था वो ब्रिटिश हैंड्स के अंडर ही रिजर्व था. इस डिवीजन के जो सब्जेक्ट्स थे वो 2 हाफ्स में डिवाइड कर दिए गए थे, रिजर्व्ड और ट्रांसफर्ड. अकॉर्डिंगली द प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट वाज आल्सो टू कंसिस्ट ऑफ 2 हाफ्स. The governor and the members of his executive council were to administer the reserved subjects. The transferred subjects were to be administered by the government acting with ministers. And this novel distribution of executive powers in the provinces came to be known as diarchy. Each side of the government was clearly differentiated from the other in its composition and its constitutional relations with the governor and the legislative council. Now here are some questions for you. First is, what were the main features of the Morley-Minto reforms? And second is, what were the problems in the working of the diarchy? That's all for this session. Thank you and have a nice day.